is John here from the Acoustic Shop. I'm actually joined today with a special guest. David from Gallagher Guitars is here. We're going to be talking about, guess what? Gallagher Guitars. I don't know if you realize that, but you're going to talk about...
I had an idea that's what it would be.
That's what we're going to do. So we're going to talk a lot about those just after this. So we are back, and before we get into this, I do want to encourage you, if you guys enjoy our videos, make sure to like and subscribe, click the little bell. It'll tell you all the kind of stuff when we got more stuff coming, like when we get special guests to talk about guitars, and you know how we are. We love that stuff, and we love for you guys to comment and share. That's how we get to continue to do this, so please do that. And as always, there's going to be all kinds of good stuff showing up all over, including more demos of these guitars. We'll talk more about these specific guitars. But today we are going to talk with you about Gallagher Guitars, because Gallagher is back in the conversation now in acoustic guitars. And
that makes me very happy. We've been working on that.
I'll bet it does. Yeah. So we have David here. Is now the owner, correct, of Gallagher Guitars. And this has kind of been a thing for you. You've been now involved for how many years?
So I purchased the company at the end of 2019 after they'd been closed for just a short time. And then we opened our shop January 1st, 2020. And the guys actually wanted to come in and work January 1st.
Well, I guess somebody wanted to get a paycheck. That's basically what,
well,
that definitely helps, right? So there is a lot of history of Gallagher Guitars. Yeah. I think, and I will get into a lot of this, but to me, the most infamous part of Gallagher Guitars has been the relationship with Doc Watson.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody knows that Doc played a Gallagher guitar. And there was actually a time period when Doc played actually a Martin guitar with a Gallagher neck on it, correct, for a while?
Now that's a new one to me.
Is that
I haven't
a new
heard
one?
that. I love stories, but that one I haven't heard.
This may not be true, and those people out there are going to probably shred me for it. I had heard that. Okay. I don't know that was necessarily true, but I know that Doc also had his own guitar that was a Gallagher, at least for sure, and actually probably had a few different ones, I would assume, over the time period.
He did have some different ones. He started with that famous G50. That was the one on Will the Circle Be Unbroken, old Hoss. But I heard recently, we met T. Michael Coleman, and I heard the background story to the creation of the Doc Watson model. J.W. had gone up to Nashville because Doc and Merle and T. Michael were playing Exit In. And they went out to eat at TGI Fridays beforehand. And J.W. said he wanted to build a new guitar for him. And Doc said, if you'll do these things, 1 3/4 nut, jumbo frets, voice top. It seems like there was one other thing different than the other. Well, they did change the appointments. But Doc, the other thing, the most important thing, he wanted the neck like the Les Paul neck that he enjoyed playing.
I got you.
And so Merle later took that neck to the shop and they used that to profile. But T. Michael said, right there in TGI Fridays is where the Doc Watson model was born.
So that happened, do you know roughly what time period that was?
That would have been around 77 or so. The first model was built in 78.
Okay. So
I'm sorry, 68. 68.
Okay, so Gallagher, though, as a company, do you know the history on that, when it started, all that kind of stuff? So give us a little refresher on that.
Yeah, well, J.W.'s doing his thing down in Wartrace, building furniture, and really nice furniture. I've seen some of those pieces, Queen Anne style furniture. He knew what he was doing. And the local company, the neighboring town, recruited him and one other man, Bill Connor, I think his name was, to set up a production line for retail guitars, because everybody was selling those Sears and Roebuck type catalogs.
Sure, why not?
Or guitars. And so he did that for 1.5 to 2 years, and that's where he learned to build guitars, but he wanted to build Queen Anne style guitars and not the little retail guitar. And that's how it started.
So then, that was what year do you know?
So that would have been like 63 or so. And he started his shop, the Gallagher Guitar Company, in 65.
Okay. So then he's building for a while, 3-4 years before he gets in contact with Doc.
Right.
And then there's that. So they already had probably, I would assume, quite a few different models that he had kind of built before that.
It seems like, from looking at the records, and I could ask Don about this, he really just had the 2 models.
Really?
Yeah.
Both dreadnoughts?
Yeah, the mahogany, the G50, and the rosewood, the G70.
Gotcha.
And some of the first models, when I look back at the records, were built for Merle. Now the GC70, that was the first model of it, and it was built for Grandpa Jones.
So GC70,
A grand concert, like a triple O.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. So built for, you said for Grandpa Jones,
Grandpa Jones,
That's
yeah.
awesome. I got to spend a lot of time with Ramona and their son, Mark. He actually, I don't know if you know this, was living in Arkansas for quite a few years, as well as Grandpa Jones actually had a show down there for quite a while. But yeah, family was really, so a lot of cool history going on. Obviously, that's mostly Tennessee history going on right there, and building lots of guitars. Moved on towards what we did with Doc Watson. And here's, I got a funny story, and I don't know if you know this. There was the era of the, quote, lawsuit guitars.
Yes.
And
I now have one.
I have one.
As of yesterday, you do.
I own one. I have one in here. I have an Aria.
How about that?
I have an Aria. It is a mahogany, laminate mahogany, so it's not truly a Doc Watson.
Right.
Because I think they genuinely, if you haven't seen it, you know, the lawsuit guitars, for those of you who haven't yet got a chance to see those, it was an era where a lot of Japanese companies were building guitars, and they didn't care that they were making it look and shape and everything as much as possible as very famous guitars here in the U.S.
Even the fonts on the stock head.
Exactly.
Everything.
So like a Martin guitar had a gold labeled, it would say Takamine, but it was gold font, looked just like it. And what's funny on the Gallagher ones is it's hard to tell the difference, because they were trying to say A for Aria, but they put the curl around it, the half moon and all that kind of stuff. So I'll show you mine here. I actually do have it here.
So let me tell this story. Speaking of history, last Saturday I was over at the shop. We're over there most Saturdays, so people can drop in.
Sure.
And I got a call, and this guy starts talking about, just saw one of your guitars up at Gruen Guitars, loved it. I'd like to come down and visit with you. I have a long history with Gallagher. I have a 1967 G50. I said, really? Yeah, that's great. He said, yeah, I was a student at Lipscomb at the time. Oh, really? I said, do you happen to know another Lipscomb student who had a G50? And he goes, Ray Markram. I said, right. Ray's the one that taught me guitar.
Really?
With that G50.
Well, there you go.
And they were in a group together called the Brown Trio.
That's awesome.
So they showed up together Thursday and both brought their guitars. And I could hardly get a word in edgewise, because they were talking all their stories.
I'm telling stories of the old guitars.
But he's the one, Larry is the one that had the Aria. And he was a dealer in Nashville. And the Aria dealer came in and said, hey, look at this great guitar. And so he bought it and took it down to J.W. to show him. And J.W., he was aware of the copying going on. And J.W.'s response was, well, that's a real compliment.
Well, there you go. Not so bad.
But Don didn't have that frame of mind, and so Don worked to make sure that they
didn't do that.
Yes.
So that's where the lawsuit part comes in,
Yeah.
As they kind of had to stop doing some of those as copies. But you know what I thought was the most interesting part of that is, so there are very definite trademark look things of Gallagher guitars. One is this wave headstock.
The French curve.
That has been, you know, all the way through, as well as the pickguard shape.
Yes.
And of course that logo that has always been part of it. So I thought it was actually really interesting, because that, you know, most of the lawsuit guitars were of very, very famous instruments. These were the big brand stuff. And I found it very interesting to think that Gallagher, who was building, I'm assuming, not that many guitars at that time period. I mean, they were probably building quite a few, but not to the numbers of the Gibsons
not like some
and the Martins and any of that kind of stuff. It shouldn't have been anywhere near that. But that there was enough attention to that, that a small company would pay attention to that, a Japanese company, and make a copy of that. And again, that has to do, I would assume, with the relationship with Doc Watson. I mean, this is a time period when there was no finer guitar player, and there's still no finer guitar player than Doc Watson, and the history that's been done there. So I agree. Yes, it is a compliment. I thought it was actually, it was so much so that when it showed up in the shop, like I said, same thing as what you did. I bought it immediately. It needs a lot of work. It has a lot of problems.
Oh my gosh, the one I got is a very poor specimen of our guitar, but you know, it's part of the story.
Yeah. So we're rolling through. We got through our 70s period. Gallagher is doing well as more of a custom shop build kind of company, right? And then later on, obviously within the last 5-6 years, it starts to slow down, not doing as much. And that's when you came into the picture and wanted to keep it going. So what was your main interest in wanting to be part of this?
You know, I've thought about this a lot because I made some decisions and now I've had time to reflect and try to understand.
So are you sure you made the right ones? That's the real question.
Well, who saw a pandemic coming, right? Oh my goodness. That probably would have changed things.
It probably would have.
Yeah.
For all of us, by the way.
But just like the gentleman who taught me guitar, I'd always known that his guitar was like the prized guitar, you know, that we always wanted to play. And then when I was in college and in a little group, I took the guys by the shop. And actually, you know, I'm a little college kid. I don't know what's going on. If I'd known to have asked to see if JW was there that day, I would have loved to have met him.
Sure.
So I met Don that day, and he was gracious as he always, you know, was. But I've had this connection because I grew up close to War Trace. And it's just been at that level of guitar. And then eventually had my own G50 after, you know, playing some different ones. I also had a G70 at one time, but the G50 is the one that really spoke to me, and I still have that. And that one's not going anywhere forever, right? One of those guitars.
Yes, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I have a couple of those.
So I think it was something about it just seemed so sad to me to think it was going to be gone. And that's what moved me. The other thing is I was ready for a new project in my life, and so I got one.
There you go. That will work. So now you're no longer building out of the original place.
Right.
You're now moved to Murfreesboro, correct? And this is kind of you start rebuilding the company, doing what you guys do, and obviously thinking of the legacy of Gallagher Guitar.
Yeah.
But you also recognize that there has to be a move on. And I think this is, for you folks out there, the part that I find most interesting about some of these legacy brands is some of the stuff, we have an affinity for it. Like, I know the history of Gallagher guitars. I played quite a few. And there were some great ones, and there were some less great ones. But there's an affinity. There's a life that you, like what you just said, that was part of your guitar career, even the idea of Gallagher guitars.
Right.
And I think when a person comes in like you to come into a new era of a legacy brand, you have to figure out a way to go, we want to be up there. We got to make this a business, obviously, and we got to make it competitive with all the other. And I've said this, you guys have all heard this. Everybody talks about golden eras of guitar building. You're in it, folks. You're in it right now. It's true.
That is true.
There is no doubt about it.
Great guitars.
There's very few companies out there building horrible guitars right now. You know, there are lots of great guitar companies building the best guitars that they've ever built.
And you can get into a pretty nice guitar for a decent price.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of good guitars out there.
You know, that I've said this too, is the idea that we used to have was, you know, a cheap guitar you can never learn to play because they're just so poorly done. Boy, it's hard to find such a guitar.
I've had some of those.
I've had some of them too, but nowadays it seems like you're not finding those
Yeah.
to the degree. Now, there's definitely different ranges of guitars and different advantages to each one of those levels and price range. It's not like, you know, every cheap guitar is the best guitar in the world. That's not what I'm saying by any means. But it is almost impossible to find companies that are building something so bad that you can't play it, you know. Anyway, I got off subject with this. But right now, the mission for you is to pay attention to the legacy of what Gallagher was, yet also bring it into a new generation of people who don't know what Gallagher is and have to compete with these amazing builders that are going on right now.
And it's still a bit of a family, like Richard Hoover, Santa Cruz, just a great guy. People have been so kind to me and supportive of what we're doing because there's room for everybody.
Absolutely.
You know, we have our place in the guitar world, a Tennessee company that has such heritage to it. So we're building off of that. We're very aware of the history. It's very important. I talked to Don recently and was telling him about it continues to grow on me to think about this connection to the past because every guitar that comes through our line, Don and JW's hands are still on it. Some of the machinery, the forms, the ways of doing things, to think about that long history. Now, we've also been very conscious of trying to apply some new knowledge to what we're doing. And in particular, we've made some decisions, and I should talk about this a little bit, because I think that's one of the unique things we're doing.
That's what I want to hear.
Is that every top wood that comes into our shop, we have two different types of audio testing that we apply to it. And we're using that to help us do the best we can to have a good, consistently good guitar every time. So we do audio testing to find the resonant frequency of the top. Hope it's all right to go into this.
This is exactly, this is what they want to hear. This is what makes Gallagher guitars now what they are. Because they're fabulous guitars right now, absolutely.
Yeah, so instead of, the wood is wood, it's going to offer its own qualities to you, but we can learn as much as we can about that particular piece of wood and how best to use it. And so the audio formula that we're using, we find the resonant frequency. We use that frequency in a formula, Young's modulus of elasticity, to help us determine. Right.
Who doesn't know that?
It helps us determine the ideal thickness for that top. So instead of it being always 120 thousandths, it might be 109, it might be 123. It varies according to that particular top. And then after it's braced up, joined, and then braced up, we also test again to look at the vibrational patterns of the top to help us make some decisions about bracing and such. Because if you create a good, consistent vibrational pattern as much as you can, once you glue the top on, it's locked in.
Sure.
And if you have a good, consistent pattern instead of some funky waves going on, you're going to get more projection. And so we're applying some of that to what we're doing. The other thing you may notice, like my G50.
Oh yeah, those old guitars were heavy, and I think that's part of that era.
Yeah.
Everybody's guitars, whether it was Martin, Gibson, Mossman, they were built like tanks.
Yeah.
And I think it was part of the era of that guitar style building. Was everybody there? I find it to be amazing that we're able to talk about this so much in the shop. Every guitar we sell, we talk about humidification.
Right.
We talk about care and maintenance.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
And this was something that when I'm a younger guy than a lot of the folks that I grew up playing guitar with. Nobody talked about that stuff, in the 80s and 90s, even early in the 2000s. Nobody cared about that stuff. We all just played guitars, and we treated them as if they were just a tool. And again, they were, but we've learned so much more.
Yes.
And I think what that era was doing was there were so many guitars being built in the 60s and 70s because of the demand that these companies just went, you know what? I don't want to see these come back. So build it heavy. Just go
Solid.
at it. Let's make sure it doesn't come back damaged. Let's make sure it doesn't fall apart.
Yeah.
And we learned, as with everything, I think the key to great acoustic guitar building is how light, how thin can I build this without it suffering from structural issues.
Of not being strong enough structurally. And yet if it's too strong, you lose something in that. So we think we found the right spot, the right balance of that. So the guitars are lighter because there are some ways we could lighten it and not compromise it at all. So that's one of the things that we've done different. Very,
very cool. So again, keeping the look, keeping that overall character, doing some models that were very that are historical and adding more to it.
Our legacy models, we call them.
And then but now probably doing more numbers than what probably Gallagher's done in the last 10. What do you figure?
Oh, I would say, we're getting up there. Donnie.
It's all right.
Yeah, Don ran the company for 40 years. 40 years, that's a long run.
Yeah.
JW ran it for 10 years, had some health issues and retired, and Don ran it for 40 years. The last few years, he was facing the challenges of some health and this and that, and so the numbers started slowing down some. And so we're building more. I haven't made that direct comparison recently, but we're definitely building more.
Well, I think, so that brings us to where our connection is, the Acoustic Shop and Gallagher Guitars. I met this fella at the NAMM show this summer. It was a very lightly attended NAMM show, to say the least. But actually, I think, honestly, for you guys, was probably one of the most favorable things that could have happened for you.
Man, we were so happy. Here I buy a company. We spent the first few months just trying to get the shop up and going and process, and then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So all the festivals, trade shows, everything's canceled.
Which makes it hard to kind of tell the story.
Yeah. So that was our first show to be out in public. We were so happy about that. And also because it was a smaller show, we got some great attention.
Yes, you did. So I had been following it. So, I'll give you a little,
Yeah.
and I don't know if I told you this, I had already been following you guys for a little bit. Why? You guys are already getting a lot of attention from a lot of great artists and things that I follow and friends of ours that we've watched. And one of the big ones that I had just started seeing was our friend Trey Hensley, who he was in on our first TV show that we did in here with Rob. And I've followed Trey for a while. Great player, doing a lot of great stuff. And he starts playing Gallagher guitars again, and he's starting to talk about these. And then I'm seeing him showing up with other artists and stuff. So I was aware that it was coming back. I was aware that you guys were making a major push. What I did not know was you were going to be at the NAMM show. And of course, like I said, it was less attended, so it gave us this opportunity to kind of really scour the overall show. Landed over in your booth, we started playing.
I remember it well, including, I started telling you about it, and you were like, yeah, I already know that. You had been following us.
I had been following, yes. So, building great guitars. It was really good for you. I was actually very happy. I saw George Gruen sitting there, and he's planning out guitars that he purchased. We purchased guitars to take home with us, and also put in our first order with you guys. Why? Because we played them absolutely fabulous. They were definitely the standout of the show. You guys really made a good showing for yourself. Here's what's even funnier. I brought it home. It took us I didn't even get, you guys, so this happened way back in June of this year.
Right.
We didn't even get a chance to do a video for it. We talked nothing about it. We pretty much put it online. It took me 3 days, and that guitar was gone. So we sold it already. Sorry, guys, we didn't get to get in depth of what Gallagher guitars were, but that's sort of good because now we have you in here.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about it. I feel really fortunate to be here today. I'm really happy about being here and the things you got going on.
I'm glad because he hauled all the way from Tennessee.
I did.
Drove all these guitars to us. It was a very great conversation. He sent me an email. He says, all right, John, I've got guitars ready for you. I think I'd like to deliver them. And if we can, maybe we'll do something together. And I'm like, well, I hope you're prepared because we're going to talk about filming all day. We're going to do an event. We're going to do all kinds of stuff. And you did. You brought quite a few guitars in here. Some that you're going to let me keep. Some of them we're going to maybe keep even though you say I can't. I don't know. We'll do we'll see.
We'll see what works out. Right?
Anyway, but did bring some really, really cool ones. So I see a really cool future, obviously, with the Acoustic Shop and you guys. I know that you guys are on this, just this level of about to really kind of jump out. Like you said,
I feel
pandemic
that too. Yeah.
really kind of slowed that all down. But once people get a chance to really check these out, I think they're going to be totally impressed. I'm looking forward to it. We've talked in the past about maybe doing some kind of fun projects outside of the normal realm of some of the models, and maybe doing some add-ons and things. So
I've got some ideas to share with you about that because we've got some special things. I'll mention one. I'll go ahead and mention it to you. Okay.
Right here, top secret.
Yes.
Right here.
Here we go. It took some arm twisting, but at the old shop, up in the loft, was some old cherry lumber that JW had used in his shop. And so with some arm twisting, I promise it took it too. Don agreed to sell us enough of that. We estimated out, figured up enough to build about 25 guitars. And I'm still milling that wood, and it looks like I'm going to get 25 or 26. And so we're going to build some cherry guitars out of that wood, just beautiful stuff. I think we're going to bind it in holly wood, nice creamy wood out of Tennessee. So those are going to be special guitars. Who knows, right?
Yep, we may see one of those here. We may see a couple. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. That sounds like a really cool project. So definitely big future in Gallagher guitars. I'm excited. I find them to be a big future of the Acoustic Shop. I'm extremely ecstatic to have you in here, and you folks out there be seeing a lot more demos of these guitars and hopefully even more information as we kind of keep doing it. Well, again, I want to thank you for being here. It was awesome to get to talk about Gallagher guitars. I think you guys really need to check them out. You can check them out obviously on our website, theacousticshoppe.com. There's going to be lots more opportunities to do it, and I'm just excited to have you guys know more about Gallagher guitars. So until next time, keep on picking.
And we really appreciate you guys watching that video. It was my favorite one we've made so far. We've done hundreds of videos, and that was the best one.
It was.
And the next one's going to be even better. If you'd like to see that, be sure you subscribe to this channel. And also, the more you comment and interact below, the more the YouTube algorithms pick it up and start pushing it out to other people, like-minded people.
Algorithms?
Algorithms, they're everywhere. They permeate the internet, and YouTube's got one. And it watches our videos, and it sees how much you comment, and then it pushes us to other people like you. And we want everyone to experience the Acoustic Shop world, where we talk about instruments, we do reviews, we got some fun videos coming up. We thank you guys so much for being a part of it, and we'll see you in the next video.